Welcome, everyone. My name is Diana. I am the community manager at the Canadian Psychedelic Association, and I am here to introduce you to your host. I am also part of the tech team that's making this webinar happen today, and I like to acknowledge that we are in the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. Um, we're going to take a couple minutes to allow everyone to arrive and settle in. And while we do that, please let me know in the comments section where you're joining us from. If you like to acknowledge the territory that you are at, start sending your questions for our guests too. Let me know that you can hear me and that you can see me by pressing the heart button and the like on Facebook. That way, this webinar and our content can reach more people, and hopefully someone who hasn't heard from us yet will find this information. So please show us some love with those Facebook reactions. Thank you. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to our volunteers. The CPA would not be able to put this event and our content together without the huge amount of hours that our volunteers, board of directors, and advisory board kindly donate. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our volunteers, especially Christine, Naomi, Robin, Johnny, Elias, Roxanne, Pascal, and Vincent. We couldn't do this without you guys. And thank you also to everyone who donated money for this event. That helps us cover the cost of this webinar. If you haven't already, please consider making a donation. Other ways to help us are sharing this webinar with our friends or volunteering your skills to the CPA. If you can support us in any way, we appreciate your love. Today's webinar is about a program that's integrating resiliency and ketamine-assisted therapy. It is my honor to introduce you to your host, Dr. Pam Prisco. She is a medical doctor in Vancouver, BC. Her training includes family medicine, chronic pain, and functional medicine. She is the medical lead in the Roots to Thrive ketamine-assisted therapy program, and she is also a founding member of the Canadian Psychedelic Association. So without further ado, Dr. Pam Prisco.
Thanks, Deanna. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today, and I'd like to acknowledge that I come to you from the unceded territory of the Klahoose people. So we'll give people a few minutes to continue to sign in. I see the numbers rolling in. We've got people from across Canada. We've got people from the Cowichan area. We've got people from the US. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much. And I too want to really thank all the volunteers of the Canadian Psychedelic Association. They do an enormous amount of work. And the Canadian Psychedelic Association really runs completely on volunteerism because we believe in doing stuff at very high integrity with any funds that come in. So any donations that you make to the CPA go right to our volunteers as much as possible and to wonderful people like Deanna. So. Wow, we got people all over. This is on Texas and Connecticut and lots of people joining. So we're 4 minutes after the hour, so we're gonna dive in as I'm a physician and I don't wanna be too late. I wanna respect your time. All right, so I'd like to introduce all of our members today. Unfortunately, our Indigenous elder, Geraldine Manson, was unable to join today. She's not feeling very well, so I also ask that all of you and we as well, we will send her our best wishes for a really speedy recovery. She truly is a gem of a person, and we're quite sad that she's not here with us today. So I'd like to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Shannon Dames. Shannon works as a professor of nursing and a resilience researcher at Vancouver Island University. She founded the Roots to Thrive program and is the managing director for the Roots to Thrive ketamine-assisted therapy program. Phil Dames. Phil is the co-founder and director of operations of the Roots to Thrive and ketamine-assisted therapy program. And Margaret Hummel. Margaret, she is you're a registered nurse and a professor at Vancouver Island University and a participant in the program. Griffin Russell is the Regional Harm Reduction Coordinator in Vancouver Island Health Authority, as well as a son, a brother, a partner, a father, a friend, and a participant in the Roots to Thrive ketamine-assisted therapy program. And Dr. Zish McKenzie is an Indigenous family doctor and a participant in the Roots to Thrive ketamine-assisted therapy program. So thanks to all of you for being here so much. I really appreciate it. And so we're going to jump right into this. We have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. We're going to do this pretty like we're around a coffee table, hanging out around the fire, having a conversation. So we're all going to jump in and fill in the gaps here and make this a real community conversation. But Phil and Shannon, I'd really like you guys to start it off. So you guys created the program. Shannon, do you want to tell us what was the impetus? What brought you to create a program like this?
Thank you. And I am also feeling grateful to come to you from the Sinimis First Territory, and also known as Lady Smith. I started this program. I'm a patient partner, just like our patients in the program. That's what we kind of call ourselves. We come to this work personally, and we also have professional hats where we work in various positions, and most of us are healthcare providers in the field. So for me, I would say probably in a nutshell, had a fairly interesting childhood, like many do, a body kind of fairly trauma-ridden, and have spent a lot of my life trying to manage and navigate what that looks like as an adult and how to engage in thriving as an adult and a professional. That brought me to research resiliency, which was 90% from the patient aspect of the patient partner intersection, and just really wanting to know, in a world that is flooded with self-help prescriptions, like what really matters. What are the core aspects that would enable me to kind of work with my own challenges? And if I can work with my own challenges, and I've always considered myself a bit stubborn on the healing front. So for me, when I started kind of really getting into this and understanding the process of healing and resilience and cutting through a lot of the noise out there, it drove me to kind of continue doing the work and the research. I graduated my doctorate. Instead of walking across the stage, I walked across Peru, and I had my first psychedelic experience, I guess a few years ago now. And it was the first time that I really asked the question, why the heck are we not engaging with these medicines for somebody who's had a lot of trauma? The amount of healing I got on that trip was exceptional. It was like 30 years of therapy, within a month's time period. So when I came back after researching resilience, I basically networked with a bunch of experts here in BC, and there are many. And we kind of brought this together as what if we brought resiliency, the core aspects of developing resilient mind, body, spirit, and the psychedelic medicines together, so that we could use psychedelics as a medicine to remove barriers toward greater inner and outer connection, and couched within a community, which really has where almost all of my healing has happened, is really based on kind of a community aspect. So yeah, without kind of getting into too much here, I think I would also I'm gonna pass that to Phil, and then I'll round it up if we need more.
Thank you. I'm having audio issues. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks. Thanks, Shannon. I'm coming to this on more of a personal level as well. My background is in business, and one thing that I've always loved about any sort of business that I'm involved in is the interaction with my clients and the relationships that are formed over time within those engagements. So while Shannon was working on establishing Roots to Thrive in my life, I was keen on establishing some more authentic relationships with particularly men in my life, and creating some spaces where we can, as men, show up authentically, honestly, and share different things that are going on in each of our lives. So parallel to Shannon creating Roots to Thrive, I was actually creating a structure of sorts to hold a container for men's groups. And we ultimately, I think we were on a walk one day, and I said, well, you've got this going on over here, and I've got this going on over here. What if we brought them together and saw what happened? So that conversation honestly wasn't too long ago, and here we are now. But ultimately, for me, it's this passion of creating these spaces where individuals can just show up, be authentic, be who they are in that moment, and be witnessed in the same way.
Thanks. So Shannon, I want you to give our audience a bit more of a viewpoint here of what's happening. So this program is actually quite revolutionary in a way. It's in a health authority, in addition, affiliated with a university. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so the Roots program it emerged from the research. So it's basically looking back at the last 100 years of studies around, what do we know works? What has had a significant impact in terms of, tools and modalities? And then the whole program was built exactly on that. So it's the university part of it is really kind of covering that this is an academic, research-informed program. And without making it sound overly stuffy, many of our programs are about feeding the head, right? So we go to these 8-hour sessions where we feed at the level of the mind. And what the research says is that doesn't work. It does not work. We have to embody knowledge at the level of the mind, body, spirit. So for us to continue just working from the mind actually creates more frustration leading to shame around why we can't embody these kind of memorized insights in a way that impacts our behaviors. So, coming from the university standpoint of it, it sounds like it's more head feeding, but actually it led us down a different road, going into the felt sense and really working with trauma as a concept where we have stuck energy in the body. So we aren't focusing on the narratives and the story that we tend to cling and attach to and actually sometimes feel quite victimized by, and we can't get out from that victimized role. And we focus more on kind of letting some of the narratives go. Sometimes we can use those to stay with the emotion so that we can feel it and release it. And sometimes we actually don't need the narrative at all. We can really, with psychedelics, it's really about moving into the body and releasing some of those stuck energies. And sometimes that doesn't require us going to that narrative place at all. So with the Health Authority, we partnered early on with some studies working with nurses in trauma-laden work environments. And we found in that study that we were improving cognitive control. So what that meant was that we were giving people, by going through this community-based resiliency development program, where people were able to kind of show up with each other, celebrate each other, see the signal of who we are, despite the kind of noise of our conditioning in our nervous systems. They were able to gain more control in their lives, make changes that they weren't able to make otherwise, show up in ways that were more authentic, that were inaccessible to them before. So with that success with the Health Authority, we've continued in this partnership, and it was a natural progression as we brought in the psychedelic medicines or the ketamine component that the Health Authority has been right alongside with us.
Thanks. I want to bring in the patient partners here. We're going to talk a lot more about the program too, but I think it'll be good to start to hear from people that have gone through it most recently. So, Margaret, Griffin, and Zish, well, how about we go in that order? Why don't you guys give us a view into it? What brought you in? Why did you apply to this program? What drew you to it?
Thank you, Pam. Absolutely. I came to the program very burnt out is a actual term. I don't know if you can be more burnt out than I was burnt out. As Shannon was speaking about the trauma-laden work environments, that was much of my experience as a bedside nurse. Was in those types of environments where there was a deep incongruence with the way in which my heart wanted to be able to provide care and the way in which I was actually able to provide care. And so It wasn't long before I moved into another area of nursing that really spoke to my heart, which was working at the university and working with students, and then once again still found myself in a place of very deep burnout. And I believe it was a combination of things. It was, again, much of what Shannon spoke about things that I had been holding on to that my body wasn't necessarily able to release, and also just ongoing challenges and struggling to meet the needs of the learners in a way that I felt was congruent with my spirit, basically. And so I had recognized my burnout. It manifested for me in ways of not being able to concentrate. I wasn't able to be present with my family. I couldn't get my daily work accomplished. I lost all compassion essentially for the experiences of others, really, for people that I worked with that I actually have very deep respect for. But I couldn't cultivate the compassion. I was so burnt out. And when I stepped back and saw that was happening, it actually bowled me over a bit like a tidal wave, because once I actually acknowledged it, I realized how, as I said, deeply burnt out I was. And for me, it was such a sense of spiritual incongruence, even though the medical world would label it a certain way, which is, useful. It wasn't useful for me. It didn't fit the way that I was being labeled. And so I began, using strategies that I knew that my soul was aching for: nature and solitude and quiet, and, things that I knew that I needed that I wasn't giving myself. And that was really helpful in kind of a slow and steady progress way. It was like 2 steps forward, kind of 5 steps back sometimes, because that is how healing works sometimes. And so I came to the program seeing that even though it was something that felt like it would really challenge me, I knew that there would be times that it would feel very messy, and times that I was, hesitant, because it's this really a group of strangers that I am leaning into. And but the community that I knew would be created, like I had faith and trust that the community that would be created would help support my healing, which it did. And of course, I'm sure we'll talk more about that after. So that's how I came to the program. Griffin?
Thanks, Margaret. And I just want to honor everything you just said there. I just felt a lot of that land and could connect to a lot of that. So thank you so much for everything. In my own way, I'm on about a 2.5 to 3 year healing journey after being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and had accessed a lot of different opportunities, all external to the very system that I work within. And I think that that's an important piece for me to acknowledge is, when I was looking for healing, when I was trying to seek out those opportunities, there was something really disappointing and also frustrating in looking back at the system that I have served and have worked within it, and not really seeing those distinct opportunities for healing to come in the ways that I felt were congruent for me and fit for me. And yet, last October, I found myself at a conference in Nanaimo, and it was the first introduction to me around psychedelic assisted treatment. And it was just an automatic for me. I based on prior experiences that I had had with the medicines, and just kind of my understanding, even in brief, of the Roots to Thrive, it was, it wasn't just a yes, I want to be in there. It was a desperate plea to get in. And so I'm so thankful. I think, oftentimes I'm describing this as a gift of a lifetime. And now, I'm reflecting on it and everything that I've gotten out of it, and that I continue to get out of it. I definitely can say that I'm a changed man, and I still have changes to make. But I feel empowered, and I feel enabled to make those changes. And I know that so much of that is rooted in the community that has been afforded to me through the Roots to Thrive program. And then as well, certainly aided and fast forwarded in major ways through the experiences with the ketamine. Yeah. Zish?
Miigwech, thanks so much. Anan Majike Kwe Dijnakas Kingfisher Dodem Temiagama Nishnabe Dunjaba. I'm deeply honored to be calling you tonight from the territory of the Kawatsan people. And my office here is actually on the reserve. So so grateful to live, work, and play on this traditional and unceded land. And for me, what drew me to it? Well, it was a definite calling. I think too, as both Griffin and Margaret alluded to, I had some diagnoses after many years and living in medicine. It's just the training in medicine and residency is a trauma, essentially, just one long trauma. And for me personally, I had trauma before those events, so it just kind of built on top of that. So, and systemic racism in healthcare is just like off the charts. So living in that experience every single day. I worked on reserve frontline for 5 years in family medicine, and it was just really challenging work. And honestly, I didn't have any support while I was working. So yeah, and so then, yeah, I guess it was just burnt out. So I heard about this amazing course from a friend. And it just, honestly, I think it was similar to Griffin. It just felt like this lifeline that there's a possibility that maybe my life could change, you know? And so I think also it was very, very calling too, because everyone in this cohort was a health professional. So there's something about the understanding of all the participants coming from a similar background that was also very comforting. And for me, I think that nothing had helped before. Like, well, that's not true. I had done a lot of counseling, and that was very slow and painful, and it did help. And I'm so grateful for all those learnings that brought me to where I am. So I'd be ready to kind of take this next step. But the like mainline treatments weren't getting at like where I wanted to go. I really felt like there was something there that I was meant to do, and I just had no concept of how to get there. And so with the Roots to Thrive, I was saying this the other day to my buddy. I was like, one of the best parts, like they gave me a friend to start. I signed up the first day, and they're like, "Oh, here's your friend." I'm like, "Wow, this is the best! Get gifted a friend." So I really love that about it. And but like the cohort, the group, like it's a small group, and just being able to talk about important things and just be held in such a loving space was so therapeutic. And I think that the ketamine portion gets a lot of hype, and I agree that that's really important part of the program, but that the Roots to Thrive 12 weeks meeting, building and setting intention, and really like growing together and learning to trust other people and all these other things are so important, and really hold these other ketamine experiences. And some of the things I've noticed for me is just like, honestly, I get emotional talking about this, but it's like, it's almost like I felt like unworthiness or whatever to be getting so much help. And but I could see now how all of us are like one person, and in our lives, like us changing our lives will ripple out. And like in my group, there's 6 of us, and how our ripples can affect the whole world and our community, our families, our children, you know, our aunties, our uncles, and so that's been just something so beautiful to witness and experience. And having times like, there's times where I know that there's so much work, you know, things that we have to actually, it's not like a free ticket, like, oh, you're going to be better. You still have to do the work, you know, it's just like, you still have to go through those emotions and patterns and things like that. But at the same time, I've also experienced like these times of just contentment and happiness and presence in my own life that I haven't experienced in like 15 years, you know? So, which is coincidentally when I started medical school. And so it's been a true gift, like to feel like my life is like just moved on to a different trajectory. And I'm so grateful for the group and the medicines. I think the ketamine portion has really benefited me. And yeah, so that's where I'm going to stop now. I could just keep going. But Miigwech, thank you so much. All my relations.
Well, thank you so much, Ish. So now that we've got all this, I really wanted to do that. I wanted people to hear what it was like for people to be in it, because now people want to listen and they want to know what the heck were they doing. So back to you, Shannon and Phil. Let's tell everybody that's watching now. Let's explain what the program looks like. What is it doing? What is the structure of it? What happens?
Phil, before I pass off to you for the structure that you're so good at describing, I think I would be remiss to not mention that this, I did not like manifest this out of thin air. This was multiple professionals from different disciplines coming together and taking off our hats, some hats bigger than others in this conditioned world we live in, and just being equals together as humans and creating something together as a community that that emerged into Roots to Thrive. So yes, I was honored to spearhead that, but it certainly was not me alone. And I would think that would not be good if people had came to that conclusion. And I also, as Geraldine Manson is not here, Elder Geraldine she's been meeting with us for 2 years, and we've literally been circling around my living room and started over a year ago with Geraldine and 2 other elders, and going through the curriculum and just talking it out, just like they would around a fire, and they so generously shared their insights and really helped us kind of understand how we could make this more accessible to more people. And as Geraldine would say, she shared her bundle with us, and she shares her bundle with us every single week in the community of practice. She's a mentor to the team. She's a mentor to the patients. And it is such a foundational part of what we do. It just would not be the same without this Indigenous kind of wisdom that we've all been learning and soaking in. So thank you for letting me add that point. And Phil, maybe you could describe the structure.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So as far as our communities of practice go, there's a very defined structure that we follow within each of the meetings. The core intention behind each of our gatherings is pretty simple. We're all in this to co-create a space of unconditional positive regard. So whether you're on our team or you're a patient or you're a patient partner in the program, all of us are in this together, co-creating the space. And so how do we co-create it? We have a defined structure in place that we follow every meeting, essentially. And the goal is really to get us each out of our heads. We're in our heads always during the day for the most part. So we create moments to slow down within the meetings. And in that slowing down, we're getting out of our heads and into our bodies, feeling how we actually feel physically and emotionally. So at the beginning of each of the communities of practice, we'll have a portion that's about 30 minutes that's more in our heads. It's we're feeding our brains the theory behind what we're doing, why we're doing it, how do we integrate it.
And Phil, can I add to that? We feed the mind, because I just said that it's not helpful to feed the mind. There is a certain amount where we have to convince the mind that it is a worthy investment, so that we will engage in the vulnerability necessary to move into the felt sense. Thank you for letting me cut you off.
So after we feed the mind and get the buy-in from the mind, We then transition from our larger group of, in this cohort 1, our larger group of 18, and then we go into breakout rooms of 3 different breakout rooms of 6 patients. And then in those breakout rooms, we have at least 2 to 3 facilitators that are along with the patients in those rooms. Those groups of 6 stay together from start to finish. So they're all together in the first week, and they're all together in the last week, and every meeting in between, including the ketamine-assisted therapy sessions. So the smaller group really almost becomes like a family to each other as we co-create this space together. And as far back to the weekly community of practice gatherings, once we get into the breakout rooms, we create some space to slow down. So we do a check-in where we just check in and simply name 1 or 2 physical sensations and 1 or 2 emotions that we're having. And then after that, we have everybody has an opportunity to share to a bit of a longer check-in, which is usually 1 or 2 questions that we each can answer. And those questions tie into the theory that was spoken to in the first 30 minutes where we're feeding our brains. And in those times of sharing, we also encourage everybody to what we call compassionately witness one another. So if, as an example, if we were all in a meeting right now and Griffin shared something that really affected me, like my heart started beating faster and I felt an emotion of gratitude, I would then I would share that with them in front of the group. And in that witnessing, there's a lot of magic and a lot of amazing things that can happen because we're seeing that we're not alone in this. We're not alone in these struggles. Everybody is in this together. And then beyond that, the longer check-in, then we just simply do a check-out, which is very similar to the first check-in that we did, which is just naming 1 or 2 physical sensations and 1 or 2 emotions. So the structure of the communities of practice, some people might think it's a little too structured at first, but there's intention behind every step of the way. And that intention is the co-creation of the space of unconditional positive regard. So in the definition and the structure, there's no surprises. Everybody knows what's coming next. There's a timer involved, so people know that if they speak beyond 5, 6, 7 minutes, depending on how long we have during that meeting, that the next person's going to get to speak regardless. So there's no surprises, no ambiguity, and in that lack of ambiguity, there's a decrease in anxiety, and we're all able just to settle in and feel safe.
May I add something, Phil, to Griffin, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'll go.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. What I wanted to really point out, Phil, about when you were speaking about the co-creation, and that I think it's really important that people understand that there's 6 of us that are patient partners. And when we have 2 or 3 facilitators, what happens when we all participate in that, and this is unique, this is different than anything I have ever experienced, is that the facilitators are part of the team. And when you engage with us, what that does is it dissolves divisiveness. Like there's no divide between those supporting our healing and those of us participating in the healing, in a sense. Like it really solidifies the community in a different way than I have ever experienced when it's being a facilitator sitting across from or being separate from. Like this is completely unique. And I feel that a lot of the magic comes within that, and that is a lot of where the safety is created.
Well said.
The reality is we're all healing right along with the patients, and that's why we're all patient partners. Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I don't think you can overstate the trust and felt sense of safety that comes from that, and how that builds across the whole experience, particularly when you then are in that, vulnerable spot, or what could be a vulnerable spot for people in terms of taking the medicine. And yet you are in the room with people that have shared things about themselves and met you in that very kind of personal and vulnerable way. And it really, dilutes that differentiation between professional and patient, right? And for me, I took a lot of comfort in that. And Phil, just to kind of piggyback on a piece that you said, which is around there's no surprises. For me, that is a big piece that I've really leaned on across this experience. And a part of it is from the great communication that we get each and every week that sets the stage for what we're going to expect and what we should kind of lean into and rely on each and every meeting. And there aren't any surprises. We don't get in there and then deviate from that. Like, what we understand going in is the experience that we ultimately have. And you can learn to trust in that. And being able to trust in processes and settle in and let down kind of the energy, the anxiety, so that you can fully participate, so that you can fully see and hear somebody and witness them. The power of that is extraordinary.
Thanks. On that, I want to move a little bit forward from that. And so when we think of therapy, we often really think of therapy as one-on-one. And this is not one-on-one. This is a community. So there's two things I want to hit here, and whoever wants to jump in on this is great. Anyone that wants to talk about anyone who's been on one-on-one therapy, how does this compare doing it in a community like this? And number two, the cost is prohibitive quite often for many people to do one-on-one therapy. And so how does this compare when you look at that? So anyone?
I can speak to the cost portion, the cost question. One benefit that I think operating in a group structure is kind of like a double-edged sword in a good way. It lowers the cost for patients, number one, by us offering the group structure. So we're able to pass any sort of savings on to whoever's funding the operations. So, and then number two is in group structures, it's very effective. We know that any sort of group therapy is effective in and of itself. And what we're able to do in our program is combine the group structure with and embed some psychedelic assisted therapy sessions inside that group structure, which rapidly speeds up the healing process for all the patients, or most patients, I should say. So it's a double-edged sword in that it lowers the cost so it's not as cost prohibitive as a one-on-one therapy session, and then it also speeds up the healing process. Shannon?
I like to use the analogy of one-to-one therapy. If you had a cup of water and it was going to take, you had to fill that entire cup until it was overflowing for you to have a shift, like a real spiritual embodied shift. One-to-one therapy is like a drop at a time into the cup. And when you do this as a group with a community of people that you can securely attach with and learn secure attachment with, it's like pouring water into the cup so that the overflow of the shifting just happens so much faster. We do have one-to-one offerings for people that want some private support, and they have been rarely used because the model where people are kind of resourcing within their peer group is far more effective. And it makes a lot of sense when you look at the term unconditional positive regard, which we have to, in order to securely attach to ourselves and to others, we have to experience, like receive and believe that we are unconditionally positively regarded. We can't just have it, like get it from people we have to receive it. Like it's like a frequency in our body. So when we go to a therapist and we pay them, and they're kind of others to us, it doesn't always feel like it's not always easy to receive that felt sense of unconditional positive regard because we're kind of paying them to give us something. And it's hard to really believe that it might be true with no conditions of payment, no conditions at all. So when we meet as a peer group, that unconditional positive regard, we can gain trust in that at a quicker rate. and we can receive that frequency, and then we can direct that inward, which is self-compassion, and we can direct it outward, which is how we take self-compassion and offer unconditional positive regard to others, which is like sharing that frequency. And that's the ripple effects, right? Where we see it in our families and in our relationships, is we receive that frequency, and then we can attune our other relationships in the same way. And once we securely attach, that's when all the magic happens, right? That's when we shed all of the things that we attach to, our addictions, our depression and anxiety, is from anxious attachment of all things that are not, securely within us and with others.
Can I add one more
riff
thing
on that one more time? Because I feel like, unique to this, and Shannon alluded to it in terms of that one-to-one relationship with a therapist, and I've seen many. And I do want to acknowledge that, like, a lot of really skilled ones and people that I like, they're fantastic people. I'm very grateful for them. And there is that part where it's almost like they're trying to do something to you at times. And in this context, within a group, a lot of the magic is coming from the fellow patient participants that make up your cohort. Yes, the facilitators too, and you can never understate how amazing they have been. Gail and Wes, like, woo, I'm just holding you to big time. But the investment as patient partners in this is like, you got no stake in the game. You're really just there to hear the person, and they're not there to fix you. They're there to just offer, to witness, to be there with you. And to me, that has been truly beautiful. And not only that, but everyone is hearing something different. And so when it comes time for them to give you compassionate witnessing, last week I was humbled, I was crumpled in tears, I was with grief and with shame over something that had gone on in a personal relationship. And the way that they were able to hold me and to let me be in that vulnerability and in that kind of grief and shame, it translated to a huge shift last night while I was sitting on the couch, just thinking about this and working through it. And so, the echoes that happen from being in a group environment, and as you said, with peers that are other healthcare providers, like it's been remarkable.
Thanks. I'm just going to put some clarifying questions out there. There's some questions coming in from the audience, and I just want to clarify some things so they can follow us a bit better. So the Roots to Thrive Resiliency Program is a 12-week program. The community of practice is 2 hours a week. So that some people are wondering, is it like residential? No, it's 2 hours a week for 12 weeks, and with 3 ketamine assisted therapy sessions inserted in the program. Now, what I think this question of clarification is really helpful for is, we are seeing, and I want like the participants and Shannon, and I know this as myself as being the physician that's there, is we're seeing remarkable shifts in people in the second week and the third week already. From people that didn't know anything about each other, didn't know each other, and we're seeing remarkable shifts. So from the participant point of view, I would love to hear what you guys think of that, but I would also like to hear from Shannon, maybe first, if you could kind of tell us a little bit around the theory about why are we, this, like, as a physician, this type of shift in a patient this quickly I would be doing cartwheels. And yet we're seeing it here so quickly. Can you speak a little bit more to that, and then we'll go to the participants?
Yeah, we've never had a cohort run where people don't eventually relax into the process and see benefits. It does take a little bit. We all kind of come in, all of us who have like taken 101 or 1,001 self-help prescriptions that have not worked, come in and we're like, yeah, prove it to me, So, and it takes time to, where, and us facilitators, those holding that container, really have to demonstrate what this looks like, and that it's safe to be vulnerable. And by leading with vulnerability is exactly how we do that. So there's the first part of the program where we really talk about the science is imperative, right? We have to be convinced that it is worthy to invest ourselves, because many of us have invested ourselves in a vulnerable way time and time again, only to feel like, sometimes it's more harmful than helpful, right? So I think what it is as peers, we develop a safety, both in what Phil said, when the body, part of sense of coherence, which is a core resilience factor, is predictability and confidence and trust, right? In our environment and our ability to kind of navigate. So this idea that we take away the uncertainty and we give people predictability and agency, one of the first things we say is, if you don't want to talk, don't talk. Just show up. Just show up. You can be as grumpy as you want to be. You don't even have to, you can sit there and just, with that authentic scowl on your face. That's awesome. We want you to be you in whatever moment that looks like. And you can't receive unconditional positive regard, which is essential for healing, unless you test the container exactly that way. So we don't want you to bring your display here that you have to carry around all day. This is your moment to take the display off. So when people start that early in the process, and everyone does because it's infectious, and they realize that they can come as they are without all these crazy conditions that we're told we have to put on to be loved and accepted, it's testing that container, and people start to really like for many, it's the first time they've ever felt like they've been seen, like really seen, or that they belong in any space at all without, kind of feeling like they're always on the outside. So once people start experiencing a little of that and developing some trust, from there, it just kind of rolls downhill, and it's, it becomes a lot easier.
So any of the, Margaret or Zish or Griffin, you want to talk about what that kind of was like from your point of view?
Well, I remember the first time in our group when someone passed, and I was struck at how quickly one of the other members was like, thank you for doing that. Thank you for modeling the courage to do that and to share with us and to take for yourself what you need. And that in itself, like, how beautiful is that, right? Because that's absolutely courageous, like to be able to take what you need in the moment and to not participate when this is new and you're coming together. But this person did it and they modeled it, and the people received it in such a graceful and loving and compassionate way. For me, that in itself was medicine. It allowed me to really kind of sink into it and feel that greater sense of safety for myself. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Pam, I see a question in the chat box about unconditional positive regard. Can I answer it? So unconditional positive regard is so not unique to Roots to Thrive. My goodness. It is actually a term that was coined by Carl Rogers, who's a forefather in the area of kind of counseling and psychology. What is new is that we don't live in a society where we are taught how to receive or give unconditional positive regard. In fact, very few of us grow up in a childhood environment where we can receive that felt sense. And that felt sense manifests in secure attachment, which manifests in a whole bunch of other resilience factors. So it is actually, it sounds kind of tokenized, but it is, as Phil would say, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It is absolutely the medicine. So yes, we use medicines to promote and facilitate the receiving of that frequency. But the medicine really is unconditional positive regard, which is experienced in community relationship with others. Yeah.
Great answer. Thanks, Shannon. Margaret or Zish, do you want to talk about? I don't want to put you on the spot. We got lots to talk about. It's up to you. No?
I don't feel on the spot. I would agree that it's the creation of the container, the way that the facilitators present it. It is that process that we can sit in trust in. It is It is all of the things that everyone said. It's when you have all that information and you step into it, however you are in that moment, it just organically happens very quickly. It's not even quickly. It organically happens. If you want to look at the timeline, the reality is it sounds like it happens quickly. It didn't feel quickly. It didn't feel forced. It didn't feel anything. It's like this gift that sits in front of you and you just take it and open it and participate or sit, or it's the community, the container, the leaders who show us that it is safe to be vulnerable, or, as Griffin said, to pass. Whatever you need in that moment is absolutely honored. And it happens. It evolves. It's beautiful.
I want to jump in here about something, because we talked to a lot of people about the program, and I would be one that would do this. So I totally understand it. Is if I was hearing about this program, I'd be going, okay, yeah, just tell me where I can get the training. And there's something about being, for people that are caretakers or therapists or physicians, you're so used to taking care of other people. And you three have had a chance to then now be in the container and just be taken care of for a change, right? Like, you don't have to do anything. You just get to show up and participate. And I think there's a magic in that. I've got goosebumps even saying it, because we're so used to holding it together, being in control, showing the way. And I fully feel like being, a partner in this, as a team member in this, is that I think everyone deserves this, and everyone deserves to go through a program like this, to just feel what it's like, and then ripple out and do it as well. I see you nodding. Does that feel true? Obviously, but I mean, you're nodding. But I'd love to hear you. To me, I get goosebumps in the program as a physician partner there, that I'm like, everyone deserves this. And it's not something you can just look at from the outside in and go, oh yeah, okay, that's interesting, I'd like to replicate that. I just think all of Canada should be held in this container at some point. What do you think?
Oh, Margaret.
I feel like you were itching more than I was, Griffin. And I agree, Pam. And absolutely, there's moments where I would have wanted to back up a little bit and be like, I would rather be, on the border of, but not really, right? But that's where I feel most comfortable, right? And so it's just like, oh, I can, help navigate this. But participating as a patient partner and having the experience is such a human experience, right? I mean, it's a human experience. And yes, we could all heal from this. There is all healing work we can do, regardless of how much healing work we've done. There is all healing work we can do. And I don't know I feel like you would be a richer facilitator having walked through the program than you would if you just uptook it as prescribed this way and then carried on with it. So that's my feeling on it. We should all be doing this. Yes, we could all be.
Listening to you, I lost myself in that, Margaret. But I mean, the thing that I would say that is striking to me, and as I was listening to you, is that when you're in a room with a therapist, you're on the clock for an hour. You're expected to participate and show up for an hour. And to me, sometimes that is daunting in and of itself, around going like, what am I going to say? I don't even know, like, where am I at? Like, and I didn't really have a way to locate. But, the progression of how this unfolds each and every week. And, I just want to touch upon real quickly around the initial check-in, that brief check-in. It's not insignificant at all. I actually think it's very significant, and it has been for me, in that it's inviting you to connect to your body. I'm at a point now where I'm like, I don't even know if I knew I had a body before this, because I was not connected to it whatsoever. But doing that week over week and in a very kind of low pressured format, just connecting to your body, to whatever the, the different sensations might be, but then furthering that to connect to emotional experiences that you're having simultaneously. The way that that has been a gift to me, I don't even know if I can fully articulate it, but I know that it's profound and it's a piece that's going to serve me moving forward. But back to my original point, which is, when it comes down to the check-in, and when we get to that part where you're doing your longer check-in, you might have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes of direct participation in that way. And then the rest is tuning into other people and listening to them, and while also still being tuned into your body and tuned into your emotional self. So there's a lot of practicing around connection to yourself while also being connected to other people. And to me, I'm seeing that translate into my relationships at home, with my children, with my partner, with my colleagues. And then again, I think most importantly, with myself, like continuing to come back to that gift of connection to my body, to my emotions, to my truest self. It's quite remarkable to think that a lot of that is grown out of these brief check-ins, listening, and then participating for maybe 5 minutes. It's astounding.
Thanks, Griffin. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you just said. I think that how does it feel to finally have someone take care of me in that way? It just feels like love. That's what it feels like. It's just, and to have patient participants who know what I'm going through. So I'm not explaining anything. It's just that people get it. They're like, this is frontline work, and they know all that stuff. So there's this community that's there, and it's love. That's the best way to describe it. And the other thing is that there's care, and there's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun in our group, and we laugh, and we're silly, and we're connecting with this piece of ourselves that, well, for me, it just I don't know where that place was with my children, but in my life, the other day I dropped my kids off from school and I skipped to my van. People, it's just connecting with this inner child, this letting go of all these layers of who I'm supposed to be and just reconnecting to who I am. And I think what Griffin said, just we may be talking for 5 or 10 minutes, but we're learning. When someone's sharing, that's your story too. And I've had that experience so many times, just witnessing other stories and yeah, that's me. We're doing it, so just, and that's so powerful because that's things I don't have to say because someone's already said it. So that's really powerful. And just, yeah, Pam, getting back to her question, just experiencing that connection with a group. And I just feel like it's just changed so much and allowed me to reconnect with spirit in a way that, I'm going to carry forever. There's no way I'm giving that up again. So it's just something that I can carry forward, all my relations.
Now, we really have to get to the juicy part here a bit. So this is the Canadian Psychedelic Association webinar. Now, we used a psychedelic medicine, our psychedelic-like medicine, ketamine, in the program. So ketamine is currently legal in Canada. It has been legal. It's a medicine that's been around since the 60s. Primarily first as an anesthetic, as a drug used in pain control and procedural sedations. And in about the 70s, it was found to be effective around depression. So it's been being used for depression, PTSD, suicidality, anxiety, eating disorders, for a large swath of mental health challenges. And so that was the addition to the program. So there's 3 ketamine-assisted therapy sessions inserted inside the program. And I think that's a really important part that we want to get to on this and what that does. So, you know, like scientifically, we know it's a GABAergic medicine. It works in the brain. There's probably about 7 working theories on why it works, but it certainly allows one to get into one's depth and the emotions and disengage the emotion from the somatic. And I don't know, Shannon, do you want to jump in here a little bit and talk about the theories and why you wanted to marry the 2 therapies together? And then I'd really love to hear from everybody of what they thought about how the ketamine worked in this process.
Thank you. And I think I would be remiss to also just note that a lot of this group work really rides on what has been well documented more recently with polyvagal theory and how we can attune to the most secure other in the group. It just takes one person to stay in flow or to be securely attached for the rest of the group to attune to that frequency, which regulates the whole group. So it's like we can have a whole bunch of people with PTSD with hypervigilant nervous systems up here, and then we get in a collective system, and it just takes one to, right, to attach to that frequency, and the whole group is in a group flow. So that's kind of how we like engage in this process of like soaking in that frequency. With the medicines, it facilitates a similar type scenario. So with ketamine, I can speak to it both from the depression side and the PTSD side, and many times they're kind of comorbidities and we bounce in between the two. The depression side, I think, is fairly well documented in the research in terms of what's happening on the neurological, and it really facilitates the connection of the being and the doing sides of the brain. So we spend a lot of time in the doing, disconnected from our bodies, disembodied. And ketamine really helps kind of bring us back into being, so that we can feel our life force. And once we feel our life force, all sorts of things like self-compassion, a core resiliency factor, can flow in, right? We start feeling into our own magic that we lose sight of because of the noise of the conditioned world, right? We become disconnected from all of our inner magic and our inner healing facilities, right? We are all healers. We are all healers. We have equipment inside of this mind, body, spirit interface that actually has the capability of healing us. So when we connect to that outside of the nervous system, which tends to disconnect us from it because it gets too noisy in the inner world, too much stuck energy from trauma, and we can't get into the body to access those natural healing capacities. So when we take the medicine and you soak in your natural healing capacities for like 2 hours, right? You tune into who you are, the signal of who you are, outside of all the conditioning and the narratives. You can still feel emotions, but you aren't attached to those emotions. So you can actually work with them like you would a dear other, like a friend, like sitting down for coffee. You go in on that journey and you're your own friend. You can reparent the inner child in a way it couldn't be parented many years ago. Right? So those stuck energies that couldn't be felt because we didn't have the capacity to stay in the body to feel them, we go in and we feel them from a non-threatened place because ketamine separates us from that feeling of intense threat. So the amount of stuck energies that can be released in a 2-hour session is enormous. And from that, even without any, story of what happened or, any magical insights, just by releasing stuck energies, we become lighter, less noisy inside, more attached to our life force and frequency. And from there, for the next 2 or 3 days in the integration, we get to look at all kind of the old narratives that have been holding us back from a more objective and self-compassionate lens. In a nutshell.
It's magic, right? No, joking. I love it. We're not going to jump a ton into the like super deep science of it and the pathways and stuff. We could certainly do that in another webinar, but I think we have a wide variety of audience here, so we're going to keep it at that level. So that was wonderful, Shannon. And I want to know from Zish and Margaret and Griffin, what was it like? Was it worth it? Zish, you want to go first?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I guess for me, I mean, of course, it's so hard to put into words the experience. So I'll try my best. But I guess how one of the things that's really stuck to me, and often I just have to mention that in the Roots to Thrive portion, there's a real intention setting and looking forward to this. So we're like working together as a group to like create this experience together. And so for me, I guess one of the things that's really deeply impacted me is seeing myself as not just this body here. So seeing myself as spirit connected in the world um, to like other realms, to uh, to objects, to nature. And actually, I had two different experiences, one from above, like a spiritual realm, and then one from inside the earth. So I'm kind of this sandwich, which is just so amazing. So I just feel for me, like the experience, yes, took me like out of my mind and out of this physical form so I could see it. I could look at it and be like, oh, that's my body, but that's not who I am. Like, I'm just so much more than that. And to see, for me, I also had the experience of seeing my ancestors, which was like this very powerful knowledge, just to know they're there. And yeah, so for me, it was just seeing outside of myself how awesome I am. Oh, my relation.
Margaret?
Sure, I was waiting for Griffin. So I am still very green, shall we say, to psychedelics. It's not something that I've been exposed to a lot in my life. So I really connected with the medicine in a really therapeutic way, and had no idea what to expect when I went in. So it's very much what Shannon said. It's like it just really helped me see the noise for what it was, which is the noise. And it was like going inside, connecting to my spiritual self and seeing these experiences or things that had happened in my life that they weren't, I didn't need to live in those experiences, that really they were gifts and lessons and learning, and those are interesting things that have happened and they're helping me grow, but they're, as Zishet said, they're not part of who I am necessarily. And in a way that I could acknowledge them and basically bless them and set them free. And so it really created opportunities for me to dig into my self-compassion and to really land there and to hold it. Sometimes it would feel like something like that, like a sense of self-compassion, kind of like sand that, drips through your fingers. But this was this tangible, okay, like I've got this. And it really enabled me to cultivate acceptance, self-acceptance, and a general peace, and in a way that shifts my everyday, because the noise doesn't distract me anymore. It's and it wouldn't have been, and yes, the Roots program is extremely important, and yes, the team and the group is extremely important. The ketamine itself really propelled my journey. Like it wouldn't have been the same level of healing if it was one or the other. It really needed to be that knitting together of the two. And yeah, it beyond it, the ketamine was healing beyond, because that was very unique to me, very individual to me. It wasn't something that could have occurred, as I said, in a continued group session, or maybe with a different medicine. I'm not really sure, but it needed to be exactly as it was. It was perfect, as Pam would say, perfect exactly as it was. Griffin?
What a treat to hear from both of you. I had almost a similar feeling of just this huge heart swell of just joy, hearing each of you describe that. So thank you both so much. I think for me, I'll talk about the medicine, but I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the context of set and setting, and how important these were. And I think when anyone is looking at psychedelic work, they should be really well oriented around the importance of set and setting. And Pam, if I could talk about you just for a sec, I think about the experiences of coming in with each morning on the sessions and meeting with you, and just the partnered approach and how mutual it was in trying to determine, what that experience was going to be like, what I was, what intentions I had, and how that might relate to the dose. And particularly, I just remember like not being about the number, like you had me sit at one time and just close my eyes and go, just think about what you're feeling, just connect to what you're feeling. And ultimately, that led to 3 absolutely enriching and wholly beautiful experiences. So I'm going to hold my hands up to you, and to the rest of the team, because that's what contributes to the concepts of set and setting. And acknowledging that, one of the gifts that I have for the rest of my time are these 3 sets of intentions that I co-created with Pam and with Gail and with Wes, and they're absolutely beautiful to me, and I will treasure them forever. So I think that we need to spend time and acknowledge and impress upon people who are thinking about this work in formal ways or informal ways that set and setting are paramount to the experience. When it came down to my experiences within the medicine, they were each completely unique, but remarkably beautiful. And, to think about being able to be under a medicine and to be with emotion, but not be subjected to it, to be with some of my experiences, my pains and suffering, but not be, held underneath of them anymore. I could interact with them in a different way. It allowed growth and healing in ways that I know I don't fully understand yet, and that are continuing to unfold for me. And a big aspect of that was when you're in the room and you're experiencing the medicine, you're going through your journey. I heard it reflected from multiple partners within like how attuned the people are to the energy field in the room. And when there was multiple experiences where I was thinking like, wow, I'm really like, I could use someone's hand or I could use someone's touch. And boom, there is a loving hand supported on my heart, massaging my heart or on my ankles, and all in ways that I got to define. But that was magic, and I heard multiple people describe that they didn't feel they asked for anything in those moments, but that just the energy field and the attunement of the people in the room led to that type of safety and touch that brought them deeper into the experience and allowed them to feel wholly supported. So that in itself was profound. And the last thing I just want to say is in one of my experiences, my second, I came in and I remember just coming in and I'm like, I want the mystical experience. That is what I'm after, the mystical experience. And I got it, and it was it's a treasured experience for sure. And yet the next week, when I heard another patient partner struggle to articulate their own mystical experience and like how profoundly moving that was for me, I remember getting in the vehicle afterwards and saying to my partner, like, if that is all I got was to witness this person describe how profound that was, how meaningful and beautiful that was, like that would be it. That would be enough. The fact that I got to go there myself 2 weeks ago is its own gift, but like, wow. So again, coming back to that aspect of being in community, being a part of this container and being witness to other people's experiences, the gifts just keep coming.
Wow. I want to bring you back in, Phil, on this. Now, a program like this, obviously, we've got healthcare providers here that if they were otherwise burnt out, wouldn't be working. It would be a tragic loss to the system that they're not able to show up. And the cost to healthcare around trauma and PTSD and depression is enormous. Healthcare providers are doing the best they can, and we're finding a tool here very clearly that works. So you're the money guy. I bring you in. I want talk a little bit about how a program like this is potentially a cost savings to the healthcare system, and then a little bit about how the funding works for this program.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Pam, and that this works, and we're seeing it work. So that in and of itself is going to be a cost savings right off the bat. So if we just look at somebody who's suffering from PTSD or treatment-resistant depression and is on long-term disability, that person that's on disability is costing their employer money, they're costing the system money. They themselves are suffering physically, emotionally, spiritually. So it has a cost associated with it. And then if we have a program like ours that works, where somebody who is on disability could come in for 12 weeks and potentially see some pretty dramatic shifts in their physical, spiritual, and emotional self, then that is going to save the insurance company money. It's going to save the employer money. The person's physical health is going to improve. So there's all these ripple effects that take place just based off a program that works. As far as the funding and how is our program funded, we're funded on several levels. We're blessed to have received some philanthropic funds. There are individuals and institutions, foundations that support mental health in individuals. So there's the opportunity to donate to our program through the VIU Foundation. That's how we're partially funded. We also have patients that can fund themselves to come through our program. So that is a stream of funding for us. And then we're also in talks with disability insurance companies to where we can take in some of their patients that are on long-term disability, or clients that are on long-term disability, and have them come into our program for a period of 12 weeks with the intent of hopefully getting them off of disability. So there's several, and then I think it's also important to point out that we're a cost recovery model. So we're big fans of paying it forward. We want individuals who have gone through our program to potentially see the benefit of it, see the positive ripple effects, and then pay it forward for individuals coming through in the future.
Thank you. And we've put it in the chat box there if people want to know how they might help make sure that many, many, many more people go through this program. There was a few medical questions, and I'm just going to fire those off a little bit. And then Shannon, I want you in a few moments to talk about how this is going to be published, because I think this is important. This is an area of research. Anyways, I'll let you talk about that. But there's a few questions about just logistics around it. So the ketamine that is administered is in two different forms. The first one is a sublingual lozenge to determine sensitivity of the participants, and that is done much like Griffin mentioned, that it's a conversation to get a sense of what they're ready for. So no, we're not dictating their dose. They're saying, I would like to go very light, or I'd like to go deep, and they get to decide. And we use the sublingual lozenges to decide. And then on the second and third session, if they wish, they can stay with a lozenge. Some people have needle phobias and don't want to do that, or just really want to stay light. Or most of the group goes to an IM injection. And again, that is a conversation between myself, the MD, and them, and it's a decision made together. And ketamine is, you know, often given in a weight-based manner, and it's not really a weight-based medication. It's a brain-based medication. So there's a little gestalt with that too. So you can follow a formula, that's fine. That would be well within guidelines. And you can also have this intuitive discussion with the patient with what they want. So we do IM injections. There was a question around, well, how do you navigate that in BC? In British Columbia, forms of oral ketamine can be given as an outpatient, but we're actually operating the program so that we can do the IM injections within a hospital. But we're creating, I think that you guys can talk to this a bit. It looks like a yoga studio where we do it. Like it's a nice setting. We do that on purpose. We don't want people to feel like they're in a hospital, but we feel that the value, and this will, I think, jump into the research part here, is we feel the value is IM. And IM is very safe, and ketamine is a very safe medication when used by responsible people, you know, making sure that it's the right people for the right reason and at the right doses. And there was one question about concern about that it has been abused, and it certainly has been abused, you know, by police. There's been stories in the media around the police using it to subdue people in the US. We're in Canada. Hopefully we're not going to see much of that, or we'll never see that. But this is a very responsible and respectful use of this medicine, using a quality of it that is profound, and it's healing. So Shannon, would you jump in here and talk to how this is going to show up in research?
Yeah, and then maybe just to expound a little bit on that piece with the dosing as well. So the first session, we use the lozenge so people can get comfortable with the medication and you know, to really promote agency. If they didn't like the feeling, you can actually spit it out. So it's really an opportunity to have relationship with the medicine. And it also is it's a relational lubricant as well. So even there's therapy, even in building that relationship with self, because you still get some of that good non-attachment, which enables you to kind of see things from a different vantage point. The IM dose is what takes us to the psychedelic experience, right? That's the mind manifesting, the loosening of the mind, where we have an opportunity to create new neural pathways and new belief systems, right? Or to reattune to our belief systems rather than kind of the ones that aren't working for us in our lives. So the research piece, it is being reviewed as we speak by an ethics board, and we will be moving into research so that we can share our results more widely outside of kind of a standard evaluation plan. And this is really, in our minds, kind of a pay it forward. Given what we're seeing, which I think, you know, even working with our psychiatrists and those on the team that have been in mental health and trauma work for many years, myself included, none of us have ever seen healing happen this fast. It's been pretty unbelievable. So for us, we're just like excited to be able to share these results more widely so that more people have access to this medicine and other psychedelic medicines as well. Because we know that 20% of those of us that have mental health conditions are being served by the status quo traditional medicine. So that leaves 80% of the population that's suffering from mental health conditions treatment resistant, which sounds like it's the patient's problem, but actually the traditional medicines are not working for us. So research is really the doorway to change the system so that we have a bigger mental health toolbox. So we don't want to take away the other medicines. They're very important. So I'm not saying they're not important, nor are we trying to take away psychotherapy. We are adding to the mental health toolbox so that everybody has access to these as an alternative doorway.
There's another question that asked, I want to answer this, that why we're using ketamine versus psilocybin or MDMA. Well, and that speaks to what I said earlier, that ketamine is a legal psychedelic-like medication. And hopefully, and I think this program really, we've spoken about this many times in our training and our team meetings and stuff, is that this really is a nice scaffolding for other psychedelic medications. And I think as those, especially in Canada, it looks like psilocybin will likely be coming on board. I think it sounds like we have a very astute and intelligent health minister that is really moving things forward in a very science-based way, which is nice. This should all be science. And then with the MAPS MDMA trials and happening, and the study results of those coming out are very, very promising. So this is all about science and doing what's right, and there's no other argument for that. But we do need to put the research out there to provide. I mean, that's what we do, right? We make sure that we keep adding evidence to this. I'd like to bring it back to you guys. And I think one of our favorite questions, well, one of my favorite questions anyways of our groups is, you know, you guys are at the 11-week mark of the program. Who are you now? What's changed? How would you, if somebody was you 11 weeks ago, and, you know, who are you now? What's changed? Griffin, you want to start?
Yeah, it's I knew that you're going to ask that, and yet I still was unprepared for it. Who am I now? I think I am. Well, I'm my truest self. I know that I feel more connected into my body and into who I am meant to be than I ever have been before, and I mean ever. And so there's that in terms of, you know, more of a kind of philosophical or spiritual answer, but there's also the practical where, you know, I notice that I'm able to rebound things that may have kind of put me into a cycle or a spiral before, where I'm getting kind of trapped in the noise. Now I'm able to kind of bring myself back, and that's part from, you know, the community and the connection. Certainly it's part from the experiences with the medicine. But it's also the resources. You know, before we opened up, we were on here tapping and doing our different things. So, you know, I'm more equipped now than I was before to be that truer self. And I guess I'll summarize that by just sharing one line. I had a set of intentions, some pillars of strength that I came into this program with that I had developed previously. And at the end of the first session, just naturally another line kind of tagged on. And so it used to end with, I am enough. And while I was still in the midst of the medicine and I was coming out, I was going through my intentions and I said, I am enough. And then I heard myself say, I am love. So who am I now? I'm love. That's who I am.
I guess I'll go next. I'm starting your love bomb, Griffin. All y'all. Okay, who am I now? It's funny because the first thing that I thought of was like, I'm a person who goes out of the house now. Good for me. Leaves the house. Bonus. And sees other people, you know, does things. I think I'm a better friend and an even better doctor. I definitely feel more connected, like creatively. Just a deep connection to that. I think for me, the main thing that just is really coming through right now is just like totally connected to spirit. Just feels like a wide open channel that I'm benefiting from and can make decisions from that place. And you know, and of course, I mean, there are times where all that is so hard, but that's another thing. I'm the person who calls someone now instead of just like suffering at home. So I think that, and I wrote down calls for help. What? Because that's like, never would do that before. So I think the thing for me, as Griffin says, he is love. I feel like I'm the medicine. I'm the medicine for me and for all you folks out there. All my relations.
Thank you both for sharing. Heart swells so much with love and gratitude for all of you. Who am I now? One of my healing intentions for coming into the program was becoming, or coming back to me, or coming home to me. And I can certainly say that I am at that place. I am more me than I've ever been. I feel more safe and loved and cared for to be me in my best way. And as Griffin said, in a more practical aspect, I'm definitely a better coworker, a better teacher, a better nurse, and better doesn't even suit it. I have more to contribute. As a parent, I can be present with my children now, which feels absolutely amazing. And with all of the people in my life, I can be more present. And as Jish had said, it feels like it is this ripple effect of feeling grounded. The energy just naturally ripples, and I'm the best version of myself I've ever been. So that's who I am.
You guys are all making me cry. There's a few questions I wanted. Again, they're kind of takes us in different directions, so bear with me. There's clearly a number of physicians and therapists watching, and they are asking some questions around the composition of the team. So Phil, you want to
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Speak on how the team. What is the team? What does the team look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I launch into that, I just want to honor the three of you and what you all shared. Like, I've had the pleasure of being with you three from week one, and to see what has transpired in the last 11 weeks. Words can't describe it. So thank you all. Yeah, our team. I've never been a part of a team like we have now. Our team lives and breathes Roots to Thrive. Every team meeting that we have is actually in a Roots to Thrive structure and container. So we don't have a hierarchical structure on our team. We're a flat, integrative team where each of us lean on each other. So if I can't get something done, I can go to somebody else on the team and they can help me out with it and assist me. The hats we wear don't matter. Our team as a whole is inclusive of, we have registered nurses, we have MDs, we have therapists, we have a somatic energy modality professional, we have a functional medicine nurse, we have Elder Geraldine on our team, spiritual and cultural health practitioner, and our team's trauma informed as well. So we're very familiar with how to engage with participants that are coming through our program. So in a nutshell, our team covers all the bases, and at the same time, we are in this with the patients. So we're living and breathing this alongside everybody else in parallel.
Can I jump in just for a sec here? So when I hear the words, we're trauma informed, I would say yes, absolutely. That is a great deal of the work that I'm engaged in. But there's this emergent kind of term that's coming together right now around equity informed care. And I would actually say that this project is the first of its kind that I've seen in any iteration in a healthcare system that is truly equitable informed. And an equity-informed approach includes cultural safety and humility, harm reduction, and trauma and violence-informed care. And this team models it up and down each and every week in every single way. So I'm so glad that we had an opportunity just to speak to the team, because I have it listed on my sticky notes that are smattered all around me, just to shine a lot of love on this team. As people are thinking about wanting to do this work, there's a sense of humility that threads across this team and allows them to contribute and to show up in such beautiful ways. It's so humbling to witness, to be honest. It's absolutely beautiful. So this work would not be the same without the beautiful members of the team.
So I think we're kind of towards the end, but I really actually, one of the things I really think is important about this program, just about life in general, is everything we do ripples out so much. And so if anybody has anything to say before this is a question I want to ask and kind of, I think, end on, because I think we've kind of hit on most of the questions that we can answer. And I'm watching the chat. So if anyone has last minute questions that they want answered, throw them in the chat and we'll see if we can do it. But for Zish, Margaret, and Griffin, a little bit about the ripple out effect of how it's rippling out. You have commented on it a little bit already, but how it's affecting your family, your friends, and your coworkers, like the ripple effects of this program. Before I go there, was there anything else that we've missed or that is integral that should be spoken on?
Have we mentioned how incredible the team is? Okay, yeah, no, got it.
You keep saying that. But yeah, I think because for me, it has made me personally a much better physician. It's made me I feel like the elevation is continual. Like I feel like witnessing with all of you and training with our team and our team meetings, that they're right. We embody this in our training and in our meetings. And it is truly a lovely, humble team. And it's actually the best team I have ever worked on in my whole career as a medical doctor. And to not cry while I say that is difficult. So the ripple effects are amazing. I feel like I have like a child I'm the most proud of, or a grandparent or something. So those ripple effects are in me because I'm lit up all the time about this. But I want to hear about you guys and everyone. Actually, I want to hear from everyone how being involved in this program is affecting the people around you. I'll make Phil go first.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Pam. As coming into this first cohort, I didn't anticipate. I looked at myself as more of a facilitator and not necessarily a patient partner in this. However, I can without a doubt say that I have grown so much just by being a part of this program as a facilitator and as a director of operations. I can say my relationship with my kids is better. My relationship with my partner is way more honest and open and authentic. And then beyond that, the relationships that I've formed within, like with the patients, they're just friends now. It's like friends and family. And so, yeah, it's hard to put into words exactly what the ripple effects are, aside from like my heart is open. I feel way more in tune with who I am, and I've found new amazing relationships, both in my family and beyond. And I'll tag Shannon.
I would say as a mom, like Margaret, it's about kind of seeing my kids for who they are and connecting to them from that like human level, you know, without like the controlling mom trying to fit into the mold of what a mom are supposed to look like and what their kids are supposed to look like, and jamming each other into those kind of cultural holes, which neither of us fit well into, and just laying that down has, and yes, I've been working at this for a while, but every time I go through one of these, I have a massive shift. So it's like a huge honor. Phil and I are partners, and our relationship went from like, we didn't really fight much at all, but there was a whole bunch of resentment and like noise in the relationship. And now we probably look more volatile on the surface because we let our gaskets blow a little bit more, but we connect on a much deeper level. I like to say, I've always wanted to live in the world without self-consciousness. I want to be like the kid that is not self-conscious about what I'm supposed to be doing. And this program enables me to find that place with others. And that is such a gift. And if I can hand that to my children, that's it. That's all I need. Yeah. Thank you. Margaret?
Yes, as I spoke to briefly, the ripple effect is positive. I don't think that, I don't feel like I can learn something and then not, and have it be such a profound experience and then not share that. And so the ripple effect, and I believe all of us are energy. And so, as I said, even being grounded in my own energy, and I think Shannon has a saying for this, it's not coming to me at the moment, but it is about our balanced state. That's what it is, Shannon. You talk about our balanced state, that we can positively ripple effect with our balanced state. And I feel so much more in my balanced state now than I ever have before. And there is no way that cannot positively influence like every vibrational energy that is around me, like in the city in which I live. Like there's no way that cannot positively impact that level of grounding, that level of self-love has to positively influence everything around me. And it's in every interaction that I have that could energetically shift into something bigger or explosive. It doesn't. It's more of a curious experience than it is anything else. Let's be honest, like we're sitting in a computer screen, right? As we do every night when we meet in our community of practices, and you can feel the energy through the screen. That is my exact point, right? So there is a difference between what you feel literally through a computer screen from this incredible group of people that I get to see your faces of, that is this container of love. There is no way that is not spreading to the 64 participants that are watching us right now. It's impossible for it not to. So that's the best example I can give. Griffin, I'm tagging you.
Thanks, Margaret. I just want to start by just saying to my partner and to my wife, Anne, that I love you and I'm so appreciative of your support, because I wouldn't be able to do this without her. So I'm so humbled by her support. The ripple effects for me that I cherish are the relationship with my partner. And, you know, I was in such a bad way. And I felt almost hopeless, like my life was going to explode. And so to feel on a different trajectory and to be hopeful and to be in a place where I can say and feel real solid in that, like, I'm a man of love, like I am love. Yeah, I mean, I listen to Margaret try and equate the ripples and how that affects the people around us. I know that, you know, each and every morning, I start by kissing my kids and by loving them and by just trying to cherish them. And there are just so many more opportunities that are afforded to me because of the healing that has come from this. So, you know, I guess the last other piece that I would mention is that ability to have compassion for myself. You know, before this, I don't think I even knew what self-compassion was. It was a concept, but now I can feel it and I can practice it and I can extend it to myself on command, and the ability to hold that for other people. You know, that is just such a critical part to how I want to walk through the world. So the gift of being able to be compassionate to others and how that echoes out to me is absolutely cherished. Zish?
Yeah, I guess, you know, I have talked about some of the ripples in my life, definitely with my children, for sure. And connection to spirit, I've talked about. And I think some of the other ripples are just like the slowness of my life now is a really important ripple for me. Like my name means turtle. And so I'm meant to be like a certain pace, and just slowing down has been such a gift for me because there's just so much available to me if I just listen. And I think that we've all learned this in the process. Like my body has been trying to tell me stuff forever. And in fact, when it did start telling me stuff, I told people, it's like, oh my God, it's like so much information. So, but like, that's just like, just pure gold information. And then also like, if I pay attention to my spirit, my own spirit realm, how if I'm slow, then I can just take that information, you know? And so I think for me, the ripple effects are that that I have tons of ideas and things I want to do, and that I actually am able to do it because I'm not overwhelmed and I have time to do it. And yeah, so time to be with others, more present with others. And I think that that's, and I think also for me as an Indigenous person, like there's so much work to be done, and I'm so grateful. Maybe I can be that person that, like, whatever you're talking about, you just need one person to like be the anchor and be in the flow. Like what a gift that would be. So that's my goal. I like that. So yeah, miigwech, and I'll take Shannon.
I'm good. I went. Thank you, Jeez. Back to you, Pam.
Thanks. Well, I really want to profoundly thank all of you for this conversation. Zish, Margaret, Shannon, Griffin, Phil. Thank you so much, and sending our healing wishes to Geraldine, who couldn't join us today. And yeah, thank you so much to the CPA volunteers that made this happen. I really appreciate all the work you guys have done. There's in the chat box, there's information on the program, rootstothrive.com. Great video there showing that, and if anyone is interested in helping support the program, there's a button there to also help support the program. And if any of you want to donate a little bit to the CPA to keep these webinars going, we'd appreciate that as well. And with that, I say thank you profoundly. From my heart.
Thank you, Pam.